Whenever I used to hop on my PC, I always found myself struggling to find a game that I would actually enjoy for long periods of time. And it just felt like I was staring at the screen, not really having fun or being immersed. Whether it was Minecraft or Gary's Mod, I never truly experienced a game that made me feel as if I was a part of it, or had an impact in some way. And then I purchased a game called Hell Let Loose. My first ever massively multiplayer game. This changed my perspective on gaming forever. But before we dive into what makes these style of games so immersive, we have to first take a look at what actually makes for an effective massively multiplayer game. And then at the end of the video, I'll be pulling apart a game which has perfected the experience. Now, let's get on to the fun stuff. So, what actually determines whether a game is a massively multiplayer or not? Well, I did some digging and the best statement I could come up with was, a game that allows for a massive amount of players to simultaneously interact in a shared space. Not in relevance to the game's fanbase size, and unlike MMOs such as World of Warcraft, these games don't have a large grinding aspect, but more so carry a certain goal or goals that the players work to achieve together, usually on teams. So let's look at Hell Let Loose for example. It's a 50 vs 50 first person shooter set in World War II scenarios, and where you fulfill a certain role to benefit your alliance in some way, with everyone on your team having different impacts and roles, creating the outcome of the war later on. And again, Chivalry 2 does a similar job. You're put into various medieval scenarios, having 32 per side, and you're either fighting for the Kingdom of Agatha or the Kingdom of Masons. Whether you choose to become a knight or a footman, you'll be a part of the endgame outcome either way, with the success or failure of each player adding towards the end result. And with that out of the way, we can clearly see that both games are a simultaneously shared space, and where two large teams of players work towards an end goal, having different roles and impacts in the process. But what is it that makes these games so immersive? Well, depending on the game, every player usually has a role to fill, which one way or another is going to help out the team and aid in whatever objectives you have to do. Which every time also gives you a great sense of fulfillment throughout these types of games. Well, that's until we hit the 500-hour mark. But even for those people who want to play more of a background role, and still help out in the grand scheme of things, there are always going to be roles open that you can fill, whether it be a support role like sniper or archer, or a supply and logistics job, though every game is different and will vary a lot. Playing a role is great, but that's not the only thing that makes these games so immersive. The teamwork. This is a key aspect in nearly every single massively multiplayer game. I've never experienced teamwork in such a way as I have with these games like Hell Let Loose and Isonzo. In these games, the impacts you have become even greater when partnering up or helping others, whether it's going to the battlefield with a tank crew, or having your life saved by a teammate. There'll always be endless fun and collaborations awaiting. And I can't forget the kills. With the large landscapes and countless objectives in these games, every kill feels insanely satisfying for some reason. But anyway, Chivalry 2 is a great example of this. And then we have the maps and scenarios. Many of the largest games in this category are historically based, or a somewhat mashed up version. But either way, it just adds so much attention to detail. And when combined with the teamwork, role fulfillment, and satisfying kills, it's nothing less than amazing to just look around and have beautiful scenery. These style of games are crazy immersive, but how are they holding up in 2023? Well, surprisingly good. And I say surprisingly because these style of games aren't usually at the forefront of gaming. Destiny 2 and Ark just have the tag because they're cool. Though in all seriousness, massively multiplayer titles have started to become way more prominent this year. I mean, Hell Let Loose and Squad were already doing great, but we just got BattleBit remastered this year, which absolutely blew up and is still doing amazing. Though I wouldn't call this game the pinnacle of massively multiplayer, but essentially it is one. And compared to games like Call of Duty, there's just so much more connection and fulfillment all around, which is why I think massively multiplayer games are getting way more recognition nowadays, and players are also starting to notice how immersive they truly can be. Though of course not everyone is into history, and I don't blame them, but that's where a lot of the amazing stuff is at when it comes to these games. The historical significance and you having an impact in the outcome makes many of these games worthwhile. And now, about that game that I stated earlier, the one that perfected the experience. Well, I bring you Foxhole. The game where thousands of players shape the outcome of an ongoing online war, with every player contributing their own way in the war effort, literally by doing whatever you want to do. Whether you're more of a combat person, you'll fight at the front lines, or if you prefer being behind the scenes, you'll do logistics. There's tons to do and it's all up to you. Wars typically last 1 to 5 weeks, but I'm only a private, so correct me if I'm wrong. This means that you can play a role one afternoon and hop on the next morning to the same ongoing war. And there's also tons of ranks you can earn over time. They don't do anything, but they'll make you look pretty smart compared to other people. Though, back to why this game is the most immersive experience when it comes to massively multiplayer. Well, each war first of all literally goes for weeks on end, surviving on the fact that people are constantly playing and making an impact each session. And no matter how small, in the end, the game is reliant on loyalty and cooperation. This game also recently had a naval update, meaning you can play even more roles than before, which is super cool. Whether you're a part of a submarine crew, working on a supply vessel, or a crew member of an entire destroyer, there's infinite immersion to be had. And that's why I believe Foxhole offers quite the amazing experience. Thanks a bunch if you watched to the end. Peace.